Participatory action research is really important for organizations to consider because it allows communities to build collectively with each other to simultaneously do healing and change work while they're also doing research, and because it puts the power and control in the hands of the community so that they can identify what's important, when it's important, what we need to get at, how we want to get at it, who we want at the table, and what we're going to do with the data afterwards. Participatory action research is important for communities because it changes our lives, as opposed to academic research, which may have a long-term effect, but it will have an effect that's far away from us. Participatory action research has an effect on us while we're doing it. You're holding the data and all of the results in the palm of your hands. So if you have a finding, you can make an immediate change. You can take an immediate step. And you don't have to wait years for the results to come in from an outside source. You can start seeing trends and start responding to those trends in real time. Participatory action research allows groups to reframe language, and it also allows groups to control language. So for example, one thing that academic research does really well is name phenomenon. So they'll see data piling up in one direction and then they'll name that a certain way. When you're doing your own research and when a community is doing their own research, you do that. So when you see a phenomenon, you can begin to label something. That allows you to control the conversation. It allows you to change, make change in your community. It allows you to change the tone of how entire conversations happen in your city or in your town or in your organization, because you can start to control how these ideas are talked about and thought about. So one example of participatory action research that had just unbelievable impact was the research that Young Women's Empowerment Project did in 2009 and in 2012. Their 2009 report was called Girls Do What We Have to Do to Survive, and their 2012 report was called The Batting Counterline. And they went back and did the second report as a way of deepening the first. Their findings, one of their findings of many, was that institutions were turning young people in the sex trade away and were denying them help. And they wanted to understand more about why young people were being turned away and denied help. And so they started a batting counterline where young people could report experiences of being turned away and denied help. And the culmination of those reports has fed so many other larger institutions data that has never been had before. So we got to see the report submitted to the Universal Periodic Review of the United Nations, and the United Nations found that the United States was negligent in its treatment of people in the sex trade, and that was a result of the data that young people ages 12 to 24 in the city of Chicago with current or former experience in the sex trade did, and sent it to the United Nations. So that was a huge impact. Another impact from that report was that they were able to teach other people how to do participatory action research and start their own encounter lines. So we know of one encounter line that's happening in Seattle, where they're tracking young people turned away from help in Seattle. We know of another one in Chicago that got turned into the police encounter line that's being done by We Charge Genocide. So we were able to develop a tool that was transferable. Another way that the study had impact was that it was presented to the board of Amnesty International when they were in a long-term decision-making struggle about what their international policy on the sex trade was going to be. And this study really helped clarify a lot of key points for them and influence their decision. We also saw it published in the New York Times. We saw it on national public radio, and all of a sudden the voices of young people in the sex trade and street economy who are between the ages of 12 and 24, who are all youth of color, who are queer and trans, were on national public radio and finding themselves in the Sunday Times. And it was this unbelievable experience that you can't get from an academic paper.